Paige Doherty was born on April 17, 2000, and lived in Clydebank, Scotland, about 8 miles northwest of downtown Glasgow, with her mother Pamela, her stepfather Andrew, and her siblings in a pretty tree-lined residential street. She was quite a social person with a lot of friends. Everyone said she was a fun-loving and intelligent young woman who loved to dance, but she liked video games like FIFA too. Paige lived the average life of a teenager with big plans for life. She attended Turnbull High School in Bishopbriggs and worked part-time at Street Image Hairdressing in Kirkintilloch, 12.5 miles east of her home. On March 18, 2016, a Friday, they had a sleepover at a friend's house in Clydebank. However, she had to go to work the next day, so they got up early and the 15-year-old girl set off. But something must have happened on her way to the hair salon because she never showed up, went home, or contacted anyone. Paige Doherty gave no signs of life. It was a mystery what happened to the 4'8", 84-pound girl. Everyone started to worry because the schoolgirl wasn't the type to disappear for hours and not respond, and she had never been absent from work without prior notice. Eventually, her mother reported her missing in the evening. The inquiry started immediately, and in parallel, the family and friends also started the search. It should be noted that according to a 2023 updated study by Churchill Support Services, which is based on official Scottish government statistics, Glasgow City is the second most dangerous area to live in Scotland, with 1,228 crimes per 10,000 people. The Institute pointed out that along with the second highest rate of violent crime, the Glasgow area has the highest figures for those prosecuted for drug-related offenses and antisocial behavior as well. I'm not saying living in the Glasgow metropolitan area is like entering Mordor, but the numbers clearly show that there is room for improvement in crime statistics. Since Clydebank in the northwest has basically become one with Glasgow, a city of 600,000, the search was even more difficult. 2 sleepless days had passed in complete panic, fearing the worst, when the family and friends received the most painful news possible. On March 21st around noon, a pedestrian found a black bin bag in some undergrowth in a wooded area next to the World of Golf along Glasgow's busy Great Western Road, with the body of Paige Doherty inside. Police had cordoned off the area, and forensic experts in white hazmat suits started to search for clues. They had erected a tent too, and left no stone unturned, while word quickly started to spread that something sinister may have happened on that mildly cold weekend. After finishing the fieldwork, the girl's body was taken for further investigation. According to the autopsy, her death was especially cruel. She suffered nearly 150 injuries in total, 61 of which were stab wounds or cuts, 43 of which were on her head, and sharp force injuries to the neck. The examination concluded that many of them were defensive in nature and occurred while Paige was fighting for her life. Upon hearing the news, her mother, Pamela, wrote on Facebook that, "We are absolutely devastated, as will many people who know her will be." Before finding her remains, the Scottish police had been looking for a missing person, but now it was a murder case. Everyone in the country was shocked. Even the Prime Minister sent her condolences. It was simply unimaginable how someone could brutalize such a kind, young, and harmless girl as Paige. Many witnesses were interviewed. Hundreds of hours of CCTV footage were analyzed, and it turned out that she was last seen when she went into a delicatessen on 22 Fleming Avenue, just a few corners from her home. The store was called Delicious Deli, and she had been there several times before, just like her family members. On that tragic March 19th, she stopped in to buy a roll for the day. However, instead of a quick purchase, something much darker happened. The police later released the CCTV footage, and the security camera in the parking lot recorded the young girl entering the store at 8:21 a.m., but 10 minutes later, the shutters were pulled down. After analyzing the video, it became clear that Paige never left the building alive, so it was the most likely murder scene. The owner of this deli at the time was 32-year-old John Leatham, a married man with a young daughter. After pulling down the shutters, a hairdresser working in a neighboring shop walked over, peered in, and tried to figure out what could have happened, but the sweating Leatham said, quote, "Oh, what a morning. The lassie didn't turn up. I had a nosebleed and I need to collect my car." He didn't mention the nosebleed by chance because there were already traces of blood in several places in the store. He then went to collect his car and parked it in front of Delicious Deli, and the cover-up of the murder had begun. The man decided to run to a neighboring shop to buy all kinds of tools to remove the traces, such as gloves, bleach, bin bags, and antibacterial wipes. He washed the floors and other surfaces to remove blood and other scientific evidence. After finishing, he kept the place closed for the next hour, and at 10:30 a.m., he can be seen carrying a black bin bag into the trunk of his car while many people are walking by, knowing nothing about what was inside the bag. The police checked the footage that was taken near the road where Paige was found, and the man's car was captured there too. There weren't many questions. It was an open and shut case. A search warrant was quickly ordered at John Letham's house, and his car was seized too. He was finally arrested on March 24th and charged with murder on March 26th. The man initially denied any involvement, but as the detective showed him the overwhelming evidence, he broke down and confessed to everything. The case went to court, and on September 5th, 2016, he pleaded guilty, and then the horrible story unfolded, or at least his version. Regarding the CCTV footage from 8:21 a.m., prosecutor Ian McSporran stated in court that was the last time she was seen or captured on CCTV alive by anyone other than by Letham. The authorities couldn't identify the motive for the brutal murder. What could Paige have done to deserve this? The defendant had an answer. The man claimed that he had suffered a gross overreaction to the girl's words. He said that Paige, after entering his store, demanded that he employ her in his shop. According to Letham, he refused because he had other candidates to interview, but the girl then blackmailed him by saying she would then tell everyone that the man molested her in his store. Letham told the court that he panicked immediately and feared being stigmatized and placed on the sex offenders list, where a relative of his had previously been placed and was unable to find a job later. The murderer asserted that Paige told him the following: "Thought I was getting the job. I will just say that you touched me." Hearing this, the shopkeeper suddenly stood up, frightening the girl, who then started shouting. so Leatham grabbed a knife and stabbed her, then again and again, until the teenager had almost 150 injuries. Ian Duguid, Leatham's lawyer, said that it is not my position that the nature of the comment would mitigate the number of stab wounds or the brutality of the attack. I don't know if it is true or not, but I am only taking the instructions of the accused for what took place. He hid the body in the black garbage bag and put it in his car. The body of Paige Doherty was wrapped in what appeared to be black bin bags, her white-socked foot protruding, Mr. McSporran added. After placing the body in the boot shortly after 10 a.m., Leatham continued to work until 11:59 a.m., when he was seen driving away with the car. Police believe he drove home, hid the bin bag in the garden shed, changed clothes, and then went back to work until 3:15 p.m. He actually continued to operate the business until his arrest, and the day after his horrible deed, he even took his wife and young child to Balmaha on vacation. It looks like the brutal murder didn't have any emotional effect on him. Leatham took the body of the 15-year-old 2 days later, on March 21st at around 6 in the morning, from his garden to where it was later found. The wooded area in the West Dunbartonshire town was 3 miles by car from his shop. After that, he drove back to the shop and opened for the day. As I mentioned earlier, he tried to remove all the traces, so after dumping the remains, the man also cleaned his car very thoroughly with the tools he previously bought in the store next door. But luckily, it's not as easy as in the movies. John Leatham was sentenced to life in prison at the High Court in Glasgow on October 12, 2016. Originally, the authorities wanted to impose the possibility of parole after 30 years at the earliest, but since he confessed to the crime, it was reduced to 27 years. Judge Lady Ray said she did not believe the man's version of the alleged blackmail, saying, "This was a savage, frenzied attack on a child." The 32-year-old man, who seemingly lived a normal life until the murder, was also subjected to psychological tests, but no explanation was found as to why he was so cruel. However, in October 2016, a disturbing video surfaced about the deli owner in which he smirks and screams yes over and over again in pleasure while cavorting with a stripper. It was recorded 5 years earlier and shows Leatham almost going crazy while enjoying a lap dance from a topless woman. He was wearing only a t-shirt and boxers and had shaving foam on his face. At one point, he was tied and whipped multiple times with a leather paddle, later groped the blonde dancer's bottom, and was dragged around the pub's floor on a leash with a leather mask on his head. As the lap dance finished, the cameraman asked, "How does it feel, you pervert?" The whole performance was more violent and humiliating than actually erotic. Paige's mother, Pamela, told the court how the family was suffering from sleeplessness and nightmares. She described waking to hear her daughter's screams and the awful realization that she was not there to help her. They couldn't get out of their minds the terror they believed Paige must have experienced as the attack on her began. Pamela added outside the court, "Today we see a monster put behind bars for the unthinkable, brutal crime he committed against our daughter Paige. There is no sentence high enough to justify what has happened, but we can now say there is one less evil man in this world, which then makes the world a bit more safer for our kids to grow up in. There is a huge piece missing in our family that can never be replaced. I am thankful for the 15 years we had with Paige, from the kind and generous wee soul she was to the mature young woman she grew into." In February 2017, the child killer's lawyer appealed for mitigation. He cited 6 similar cases where the perpetrators received only 23 years and said that his client was a family man and had not committed a crime before. He committed his act out of impulse, which he has since regretted. The court accepted the arguments and reduced his eligibility to apply for parole to 23 years, so he could be released in 2039 if his request is granted. The delicious deli was repeatedly vandalized and graffitied by angry locals. The situation got so bad that the police had to set up cordons and security cameras to prevent them from doing more damage. The man's wife, Kazia Karbowiak, insisted he would be cleared, frequently visited him in jail, and stood by him until the final verdict. The Leatham's house was pelted with eggs and damaged in other ways. Therefore, the completely innocent Kasia and the couple's baby daughter Erica had to flee the area and return to Poland, the mother's homeland. Paige's funeral service was held at St. Margaret's Catholic Church on April 19, 2016. More than 600 people attended the ceremony, and the family asked the participants to show up in brightly colored clothes in honor of Paige's vibrant personality. Her white coffin was carried to the cemetery with white horses and a carriage. As a memorial, her friends also organized her 16th birthday party at the local 543 Club. Pamela created the Paige's Promise charity in her daughter's name, with the help of which, among other things, they were able to start self-defense courses for children, as well as support families whose children were murdered, such as paying for funerals and the like. The girl's biological father, 37-year-old John Bothwell, fell into a deep depression and died 2 years later, after he had been struggling to come to terms with the loss of Paige. He and Pamela separated when Paige was 2 years old. Friends of John explained how he believed his life was not worth living after his daughter was murdered. He was unable to reconcile how he had been unable to protect her. According to his 71-year-old mother, Roseanne Bothwell, the successful and well-known boxer John, who lived in his flat on Main Street, Cambuslang, Lanarkshire, regularly had nightmares and often saw Paige at the end of his bed, calling him to come with her. On August 25, 2018, he passed out in his bedroom. Emergency services could bring him back, but he fell into a coma and died at Hare Myers Hospital in East Kilbride. After his son's death, Roseanne said, "He was heartbroken. Paige loved John out her mind too. He never got over it. He died of a broken heart. He was never the same after she died." In 2022, 39-year-old Pamela claimed that she regularly receives death threats from anonymous internet trolls, and that she is also receiving other threatening messages. "I've been told my kids are ugly, that they should be hit by a bus, that they deserve to die like Paige," the mother said. "Anytime I post an update on my daughter's charity page, I receive a string of dreadful messages about myself or my children. The comments come from anonymous accounts and can't be identified easily," Pamela added. Imagine being such a lowlife and loser in all aspects of life to anonymously threaten a viciously murdered schoolgirl's mother on the internet. The family has since created a memorial garden in the name of Paige, and with friends, they celebrate her birthday every year. This young girl was full of life and always had a big smile on her face. She had a promising future ahead of her with a lot of love and laughter, but this can't happen anymore because, on that early spring day, she walked into the wrong store, into the hands of a monster.